Well, welcome everybody to the first edition of the COVID Chronicles, where we reach out to dear friends and experts in their fields across the country to try to bring a resource to our friends and trade partners here in West Michigan to see what we can do to be a blessing to help us all get through this time and season that we're uniquely going through as far as an unprecedented time in our country and our state and even in our community. And so today I'm welcome for this first episode from a dear friend of mine, Leslie Shiner from the Shiner Group. Leslie, welcome.
Well, hey, Peter, it's nice to see you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And we're really excited about gleaning some wisdom from you and sharing some good tips or ideas and suggestions for our tradespeople and our contractors and our architects and interior designers to be able to use to help their business navigate this unique time and season that we're in. So thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
So today we wanted to just touch on, first of all, Leslie is the foremost expert in QuickBooks and in financial management and accounting. And I've worked with Leslie over the years, probably 15 years now over the years.
Something like that, yeah.
She's taught classes for NAHB, for CEDIA, for a number of different trade and industry associations. She's wrote a book called and what's the book called again, Leslie?
It's called The Simple Guide to Turning a Profit as a Contractor.
So she's got a vast amount of knowledge that knows this industry well, and she's helped a lot of small and large home builders across the country, small and large integrators like myself around the country, and a lot of different people of the trades partners. And so we're just honored to have you on board, and we're looking forward to sharing a few minutes here with you, going over some questions. So if you're ready, I'd like to kind of get in real quick to talking a little bit about what our subject was today, and we kind of have 4 or 5 questions that we wanted to just ask and get your input. So let's go with question number 1. So number one is, what has been your experience with clients around the country dealing with this COVID-19 pandemic?
So it's a fascinating, I'll bet sad, but it's interesting to look at the different kinds of businesses you have. So there's lots of different businesses out there, and I think they fall into 3 categories. There's category 1, which is companies that have shut down completely. Things like the hair salon and small retail shops. They go from 100% to 0%. Then you've got companies that are still 100% operational, grocery stores, things like that. And then you have sort of that mid-range of companies that are still kind of going or somewhat going or seeing they can do some work but not other work. Construction, actually, there's a fascinating website of how states have handled construction. In California, construction and integrators were all considered essential, and everybody kept working. Then they were like, well, residential remodeling isn't essential, but commercial is, or if it's emergency repairs or if it's structural in nature. So it's changed all over the country as to whether you can continue. So when you're looking at your company, a lot of companies are saying, okay, well, I was at 100%. What if I'm at 80%? What if I'm at 40%? And so just trying to navigate what it looks like for the next couple of weeks and or couple of months. Mm-hmm. It has changed a lot. We were in a shelter-in-place order starting on March 16th because I'm in California, so we started a little bit earlier than a lot of other parts of the country. First week was great. I got everything canceled. I had a trip at a conference in Providence. Everything was canceled. I thought, this will be nice. And then the government came out with the FMLA laws and the CARES Act and the PPP and all of that. And so it's been a struggle. And some owners are really on top of that. Others are kind of saying, well, we're still going, so I don't have to worry about that. So it's been kind of all over the map. But particularly the ones that are successful are the ones that are saying, what's it look like today? What's it going to look like if this happens tomorrow, or if this happens, or if it lasts a week, or if it lasts a month? Or, when we start to come back, they're starting about opening up the country again, and California in particular. But how, it's not like we're going to say, okay, everybody go back to your regular lives. So right. I think clients around the country are all struggling with it and struggling with trying to figure out the best way to keep their business afloat, keep it viable, be able to help their employees, and find a way to make sure that their employees get the help they need, so they're not just leaving them out in the dirt. But at the same time, you can't just continue to pay employees when you have no work until you run out of money.
Okay, great. Now, thank you so much. Now let's go into question number 2, which is, what do you think contractors, subcontractors, and tradespeople should be doing now?
Yeah. And so it is so important to really start doing some forecasting. Take a look at your revenue. Take a look and see what happens if the revenue falls 20% or 40%. And what's most important when you're looking at something like that is to really analyze from a cash flow forecast perspective, what are your fixed costs and what are your variable costs? What fixed costs can you maybe postpone or get rid of altogether? Do you have, I'm not against memberships, but sometimes in times like this, you can say, let's postpone that for a while. One of the things I always do once a year is I take a look at all my recurring charges. What is coming out of my credit card or my bank account or whatever every month? And maybe that's something, do you have a maintenance contract or do you have an advertising contract? Can you postpone it? A lot of other businesses, which are great, are able to, a lot of businesses have said, look, we're going to forgive or we're going to not have late fees. So really look at your cash. What's A, most important to spend? What B is pretty important, and what C can you either get rid of or at least postpone? So really looking at cash. So look at trying to figure out what's the cash coming in the next couple of weeks or couple of months. And if you're dead in the water or if you're still doing work, so many contractors, subcontractors, and tradespeople, some are still going full blown. I have a plumbing contractor. Half their business was service, and now 100% of their business is service, and they're doing a lot more. They cut back on some of their employees so that now they have everybody's working full time and has the same work they had before. They're just a smaller company. So think about that. Do you want to just be a smaller company until this ends and then go back to that? Now is really the time to take a look at that. And I do appreciate that contractors and business owners want to take care of their employees, but now's the time to look at your employees. Who are the A employees that you really want to take care of? Who are the ones, one company I work with, they had a most expensive project manager they ever had. He was not performing. They kept hoping. And then this happened and they said, you know what, let's just get rid of him. And just by getting rid of that employee, then all of a sudden they could continue for many more months than they had originally planned. Now, I'm not saying people should be getting rid of employees, but some employees, particularly lower paid employees, can make more money on unemployment than working for you. So look at each employee. How important is that employee? How loyal do you want to be? Is that a new employee? Have they been around forever? And are you willing to continue to pay for them, which is understandable and great, but are you willing to realize that, do the math and figure out, are you paying for them with business or are you really just paying for them out of your pocket? Because ultimately so many employers who want to continue to have employees are paying for them out of their pocket, which is fine for a month or two, but if it's 6 months or if it goes on or business doesn't come back. So really looking at cash. What's the cash that's coming in the door and what's the cash that's coming out of the door? And that's really number one. Cash is king, and be able to try and figure out how are we going to move forward. And because we don't know how long this is going to take, how are we going to move forward?
I love your comment there about, is this cash coming out of your business or from business, or is it coming out of your pocket? That's huge. That's huge. Because I know for us as contractors, we love our employees and they're number one for us. And we're trying to, take care of them and be cognizant of their families. And yet, like you said, if we can't work and there's not the revenue to sustain that or support that, that's obviously something that we're trying to navigate. So that's great wisdom. Thank you so much.
Sure.
All right. Now we'd like to share question number 3, which is how can companies take care of their key employees, which is obviously ties right into what we just discussed while still remaining a viable company. Any suggestions or words of wisdom?
Yeah. So, today I just have to say, what's the day? April 17th. And I can talk about what's going on as of today. I did a webinar 2 weeks ago and talking about what was going on then, and everything has changed. I realized I've left my window open. Let's pause for just a moment, and I'll close. They're blowing the leaves outside the window, so let's pause for a minute, and I'll close my window. That's
what's nice about a live webcast, right? we'll let her pause, and we'll come back here as she navigates the windows and the shades. And it's really great to be able to have somebody like her sharing her resources. Okay, so she's back with us.
There we go. I just think that I could hear the sound myself, so I'm sure you could hear it as well. Okay, no, so what were we saying? We're talking about taking care of your employees, and that this is an ever-changing situation. So April 17th, they announced the Families First Coronavirus Act, which talked about FMLA, which stands for Family Medical Leave Act. And so you're mandated to pay for 80 hours of sick pay if your employees fall under specific categories. And so there are maximums, and it's quite confusing. But the advantage to that is for those 80 hours, you actually can get a tax credit from the government, so that the money will ultimately, while it comes out of your pocket, the company's coffers to begin with, you'll get reimbursed from the government. So looking for ways that the government's offered to help. So that's one of the ways, but it's a real specific for employees that are suffering, or employees that have to stay home and take care of the kids. And it is minimal. Some employees can make more on unemployment. The other one is the CARES Act and the Small Business Administration. So everybody was hot to trot on the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. And I have several clients that got money, and I have many clients that didn't. It ran out of funds yesterday, and Congress is battling over whether they're going to give more funds. Even if they give more funds, it's not nearly going to be what is needed for small businesses under 500 employees to cover their payroll for 8 weeks. The government just doesn't have the funds to take every small business. But if they do open it up, you want to be very aware and pay attention to it and see what you can do. And banks, it depends on your relationship with your bank. Some banks have been raked over the coals on Twitter. I'm not going to say which ones. And others, I have someone that works with a credit union, and they got funded immediately. So it all depends on what your banking relationship is. But if that opens up again, or if there's other sort of funding, you want to just be aware of that. The PPP and then the EIDL, because we can't have enough acronyms. You know what a TLA is? It's a 3-letter acronym for 3-letter acronyms. But anyway, the PPP is the Paycheck Protection Plan. We talked about that. There's the EIDL, which is actually a 4-letter acronym, which is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. And that's where they were giving away $10,000 grants, which has also run out of money. So April 1st to April, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, all the funding is gone. And I got a call from a client 2 days ago saying, "Hey, should I apply?" And I'm like, should you have applied? Yes. Should you apply now? Yeah, but don't expect anything to happen. So if companies want to take care of their employees, they have to figure out where the cash is coming from. And what some companies have done is they've gone ahead and laid people off, furloughed them. They continue to pay for their benefits. They pay for their health insurance. And for some employees, they get more money from unemployment and then say, look, as soon as business comes back, we'll bring you back. But we don't want to give up on you. We've spent all this time and energy training you. So we're going to hope that you can get the money from unemployment. And then when you come back, but we will continue to pay for your car or your truck or your health insurance in particular. Other companies, particularly those that have gotten the PPP money, or those that are flush with cash and were very profitable and are willing to use up that profit to help their employees, is to now pay your employees to not work. But you can pay your employees to do things like sit on trainings. CEDIA is offering free training. NAHB has a bunch of training, and the Remodeling Association has NARI has a bunch of free training. So a lot of companies are offering free training. I got webcasted out a couple of weeks ago because I was sitting on every accounting company and every law firm that was doing free coronavirus training. But there's a lot of training. Some of it is live. Some of it you just go ahead and register. Don't tell anyone. Just register, download the PDF, and at least learn from that. But I have one company that did get their PPP money, and they are spending that money paying their employees to stay home and be able to then do training. The other thing to be really aware of is that workers' comp is different by every state. In California, they are currently thinking about changing the workers' comp laws so that there is a coronavirus code, or you're exempt if you're sitting at home training, or you go from your more expensive out in the field code to whatever that is to the office code, which is very minimal. So
Right.
originally they came out and said, if you're not working, I don't care whether you're working or not, you're going to be paid at you're going to be charged at the highest rate that we always charge you at, which is the way workers' comp works. But they're changing the laws. So it's so important to talk to your banker, your insurance carrier. From a personal perspective, Allstate sent me an email saying I'm getting 15% back. Yay. And talk about your insurance people. If you're not driving your cars around, is there something you can do for auto insurance? Or can you change the rate for a month and just park the vehicle? All these things are ways to reduce the cash so you can take care of your employees. Make sure that they have enough money to be able to pay their rent. Some companies take an 20% pay cut across the board, which even if you have PPP money, you can take up to 80%. I mean, up to 20% off. And that way you say, look, I'm taking a pay cut. We're all taking a pay cut. And we're still trying to stay afloat. And the whole point is to talk to your employees about viability. You know, this is rough. We're going to figure out what we can do, but we want you to come back. We want you where you're a great asset. This is how we make money in the construction realm and in trade subtrades. That's where you make money. You don't make money sitting at home pushing paper. You make money by,
producing work.
By producing work. So just keeping your employees informed of what's going on and keeping them aware of your goal of helping them out but still it's not just helping them out, it's helping them out so that they do have a business to come back to.
Right. Yeah. No, and I've found that what's been nice is the AIA and AHP all have kind of opened up the opportunity for us to do COI education. So certified outreach instructor like myself, where we can teach classes to them that are CEU learning credits. So it helps them keep their accreditation and they can use this time to kind of keep that accreditation versus when they're really busy and they can't get away or taking time away from a project where they're in a deadline mode. This is a great time for us for them to kind of gather that information and get the learning credits they need for their accreditation. And so we've got some great opportunities to kind of offer them some home technology or commercial technology training during this time as well. Great. Well, let's go to question number 4. Why is having correct numbers more important than ever?
Well, that's my bailiwick. That's my bugaboo. You can't figure out where you're going if you don't know where you are. You have to be able to have some good numbers. What are the margins? What's the minimum margin that you can achieve in order to stay in business? What are your costs from a fixed and an overhead perspective? What are you doing in terms of managing your costs and keeping track of those numbers? So many companies out there, small business, they don't have really good sets of books. I spend a lot of time working with companies to try and give them a really much better handle. As a small business, typically when you start, you don't start because you have a degree in accounting. I forgot to do my boilerplate. I'm not a CPA, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not giving financial or legal advice. I realize I have to say that and everything. But anyway, so many companies, small businesses, they start out, they don't know anything about accounting, and their numbers are in their head. But as you get bigger and you're starting to get employees and you're trying to figure this out, all of a sudden those numbers in your head on a job by job basis may still be accurate, but on the whole, it may not be accurate. I have so many companies, they say to me, how come all my jobs are profitable and I'm still losing money? And so if all your jobs are profitable and you're still losing money, then either you're not job costing it correctly, your overhead is too high. And what happens if all your jobs are profitable, but they get cut in half, or you get your jobs are 20% reduced? Or one company that I talked to on Monday, he said, they got their PPP money and they're using it in their head. Physically, legally, they have to use it to cover the first 8 weeks of payroll, but in their head, they're using it to cover the year. Because what they said is, our employees are being inefficient right now. I have to be able to pay for that inefficiency. All employees, all jobs, everything has become much less efficient. You can't get the materials you need on time. People aren't showing up. So things are become inefficient. And so how is that going to affect? You can't just assume that the job that you bid with a 40% margin or a 30% margin is going to come in at that margin anymore. And if it doesn't, what are you going to do about it? So because I spend all this time talking with companies and trying to help them understand their numbers, if work has slowed down, now's the time to sort of clean out. There's a lot of people that are doing spring cleaning and cleaning out the garage. I think it's time to clean out your financials and create something that you can use and you can analyze. So use the spring cleaning for your financials so that you really are able to make those decisions, that you're not just trying to guess, that you're saying, putting in spreadsheets and say, what happens if we keep these employees? What happens if we take a pay cut? What happens if our volume falls? What happens if we cut out these costs or we increase those costs? Those are all really important things to do. And so that's really what I'm focusing on, is helping companies do that.
Okay. Fantastic. So I get that brings us to our last question, and any other final advice that you would give a contractor today in today's time as far as the financial management or the PPP management, and any of final advice that you'd like to share today?
So I have a couple things. My daughter lives in the UK. They just extended their lockdown for 3 more weeks, and they have a much tighter lockdown than we do here in the States. And of course, the motto there is, do you know the motto there? Keep calm and carry on. So I think that's something we should think about. Keep calm and carry on. It's not going to last forever. I'm old enough to remember living through the recession of 2008. Certainly remembering that everything is cyclical. The market is cyclical. The economy is cyclical. We will bounce back. When? Who knows? Will it be quick? Will it be slow? Who knows? And I'm not making any predictions on that. But the final piece of advice really is for small business owners, is to take this time and really analyze, what kind of company do you want to run? Some people have said to me, you know what? We cut back our labor force by half. And you know what? It's a much easier business. I am spending so much time running around trying to keep everything afloat, that if we just cut back a little bit, I might have a life. I often speak when I'm speaking at conferences. I ask people, how many of you want to make 10% more income? Hey, I do. How many of you would like to make 10% more income by working 10% harder? No. I mean, most of us can't work 10% harder. How about making 10% more income or the same amount of income and working 20 or 30% less, or less hard? I mean, it's kind of hard to say less hard, but for many companies, now's the time to look at your optimal company. Growth is great, but it oftentimes brings on headaches that small business owners think is what they're supposed to do, but they don't have to do. I had a company that this was years ago, they had 5 employees forever and ever, made a really good living, blossomed to 15 employees, lost his shirt, and said, you know what, I'm done. And he went back and said, I'm never going to have more than 5 employees. And he has a lifestyle business, and he has a business that supports his family. He gets to take off in the afternoon and go to soccer, which we can't do anymore. But, if the kids were playing outside, go out and spend time with the family. As I get older and older, that whole work-life balance, I think back to what I was doing when my kids were really little and how hard I was working. And so, maybe this is a blessing in disguise, is to maybe you want to step back a little bit and say, okay, I know I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off, but what do I want to look like at the end of this? Right. And maybe it's time to make some major changes in the way I want to run my company. How's that?
That's awesome.
For food for thought.
That's awesome. Well, Leslie, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing these wisdoms for us. It is a unique time, and I think what makes it nice, though, is just the fact that we're all in this together. We're all facing the dilemma together and sharing wisdoms together and trying to encourage each other through this process, that we can get to the other side, and we will persevere. And we can survive, and the key is to get ready to how we can thrive and what that thriving looks like on the other side of this pandemic. Yep. Well, thank you so much again. Check her out at shinergroup.com. You can take a look at her books. She's got some great resources there. We'll go ahead and share this to the screen here and allow you to see her information that she's got there. And thank you again, Leslie, for joining us today. What a blessing it was. And just glad you're healthy and strong. And God bless you, my friend.
Well, thank you too, Peter. It's been great being able to at least see you and chat face to face or person to person. So that's been it's been nice. I haven't seen you in a while, and so hang in there. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. Take care. God
Okay,
bless.
bye now.
All right.